I am very excited because this is the first screening that some of the midwives in the film are actually attending. So it's great to have the heroes of the film here, and I'm going to invite them down. Liz Catlin, Linda Schatz, and Derby.
Wow.
Please join me. I just have to say one thing before you. As documentary filmmakers, we think it's really tough. You know, you have to wake up early hours. You have to go shoot whenever something's happening. So we think we have it really bad, and that was until I met Midwives, and then I realized how easy our job is. Just wanted to say that. These women are incredible.
Well, what's the current state of the midwifery bill? I'm curious about that. Stuck.
We're heading into our 5th year. We've got lots of legislative support. We have lots of co-sponsors, but the bill doesn't move. New York State licenses in the education department, and we're still pushing to educate them to the need.
I mean, New York has this reputation of being progressive, and you know, that's part of what's surprising about this. What is the problem ultimately?
Probably because it's a licensing issue, and it's also part of New York is different in that the licensing is part of the state education department. So the state education department is pretty conservative compared to a lot of issues in New York State, and they're looking at is, well, we already have midwives, we already have licensing. What's the problem? Just do the program that's out there. But the program that's out there does not educate midwives for home and out of hospital birth. You know, the CPM does. And it's recognized in 38 other states. But New York isn't able to look out of the box and realize that, which is pretty amazing, really.
So the only way to get licensed as a midwife in New York is to be licensed to perform births in hospitals, basically. Uh-huh.
Well, not really. The certified nurse midwife can do hospital birth. They're allowed to, but they aren't educated to do out of hospital birth. They're educated within the medical system and within the hospital system. So most of them don't want to or feel comfortable. Some of them will, but a lot of times they'll work with the non-licensed midwives to get used to what it's like to attend women at home and to feel comfortable attending women at home.
I think that, I mean, just to expand on that issue, you know, I have a lot of friends that are wanted to become midwives or have studied to become midwives. They want to be CPNs because they believe in that model of birth, but they don't really have the choice. So I mean, I have a friend who's practicing half an hour from here, working in the hospital setting. She didn't want to become a nurse midwife, but you know, that was the only option she had. So she's forced into this medical model, which I think a lot of nurse midwives don't agree with either. And so I think it's fundamentally, it's like, what do you think birth should be? And I mean, the interesting thing for me in making this film was how many women opened up to me about their traumatic experiences in the hospital. And I think it's something that women don't speak about a lot. I was shocked by, like, nobody spoke about any of this until I started making this film. And then you hear about the trauma that a lot of women go through. And that's not saying, that's every woman's experience. And also, just like, I think one thing that we also say is, like, this film, it's not about home birth versus hospital birth. It's every woman deserves the midwifery model of care. And we don't have that in America right now at all.
So, of the three of you, are any of you still performing births at this point? I mean, I assume there's not, but maybe I shouldn't assume that. But let's
still having babies every week.
Well, that's my next question, is that how is this community, particularly the Mennonite community, being served? Are they having to go to the hospital? What is going on?
So one thing that's really interesting, during COVID, in New York State, our governor allowed licensed practitioners from other states to work in New York State without a license and be legal, not prosecuted. During that time, certified professional midwives stepped up and delivered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of babies. It was a 3-year period of time. It's kind of like a pilot project, really. We have these fabulous statistics. And then on June 20 of 2023, the executive order ended and those midwives could no longer attend those women. And there are communities and communities of women where there is no midwife to attend their births. They're having babies, but there are no midwives, licensed or unlicensed, to attend them.
And so some women are choosing to have births still at home, but without the attention of a midwife. So that doesn't sound like a good scenario. How many kids are on your school bus route?
I've got 45.
Okay, good. So, Elaine, how did you come to this project? Were you living in the United States at the time, or did you hear about it from other means? And
I actually came to it through personal experience. It's a complicated story, but I was living in Brooklyn, and when my wife and I decided to have children, it wasn't going to happen between the sheets. And so we did what we thought was the way you did it. We went to see a fertility specialist, test her run, and he was like, get you pregnant. A month, it'll have, in 3 shots, it's going to be great. And my wife carried my children, and going through the process, she kept saying, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good to me. And it was like 7-8 months just of cycling through. And a friend of ours said, I have this friend who's a midwife, you should speak to her. And she came to the apartment, and I just remember so clearly the day, it just was such a different experience. She sat down, she got to know us, she chatted to us about just this completely holistic approach, took everything in, and one and done, pregnant. My wife was pregnant. And so my daughter was delivered by a midwife, and my son was born at home. Yeah.
Okay. So that motivated, and subsequently heard about this controversy in upstate New York, yes?
So I did miss out one key part of the story. My daughter was delivered in a midwifery practice that was based in a hospital in New York City. And there was huge demand for this practice. We, struggled to get in. We were very lucky to get into the practice. And so when we were having our second child, literally right at the beginning, we went back. We were like, we're going to go back and sign up to get care in the same way. And it was then that I discovered that the midwifery practice had been shut down. And that I was like, why would a midwifery practice attached to a hospital that has lines out of the door trying to get their services shut down. And so that led me to ask questions, and it was at that point that I realized also just about the pressure of the medical industry. I mean, New York, well, across the US, hospitals are becoming increasingly big monopolies, healthcare systems. They're run like businesses, and there's a certain type of birth that is not profitable. It's profitable if a woman comes in, has an epidural, goes to a C-section, baby lands up in the NICU. You've used all these services, and that's very profitable. Having a woman in a bed laboring for hours takes up the bedtime, and that just doesn't add up to dollars and cents. And so this is why midwifery services are being, I think, and this wasn't the first midwifery service to be shut down in a hospital setting. There was a recent case as well where there was such an outcry they actually brought back the midwifery service to the hospital. I think it was in Queens, New York. And so I started asking questions. I didn't want to make a big essay film. I wanted to find a kind of a lens through which to tell the story. And that's when I stumbled on Liz's story. And I remember chatting to her, and I was like, this case is never going to go anywhere. They're going to chuck this out. Like, please. Are they really going to, pursue this? I was like, you know what? And she was waiting for the grand jury. I was like, when the grand jury convenes and if they carry, move forward with this, let's talk. And I remember I was packing my bags to go on vacation to South Africa, and Liz called and was like, they've indicted me on 95 felony charges. So cancelled the vacation, pulled my team together, and we started filming.
Now, for the three of you, have you, so obviously you're essentially committing civil disobedience when you practice, right? Do you consciously think about it in those terms? And that obviously you believe in it, and so you do it, which is the tradition of civil disobedience. That's how the civil rights movement and many others developed. Does that enter into your own thinking process?
I have a T-shirt that says, what is it? Women, well-behaved women rarely make history.
Right, there you go. Okay.
So my grandson is homeschooled, and he was reading about civil disobedience, and he said, so Mom, is Grandmom going to be in this book sometime? So it's talked about in our family.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about when my son was 10 years old, and there was a lot of talk about, and one midwife, this was back in 1995, and one midwife had been taken away in handcuffs, and he said, Mom, when you answer the phone, I know that these are wonderful pregnant ladies, but you have to ask them if they're working with the police. You can't just be a midwife. This is coming from my son.
And that's one thing that, as I was watching this film, and it's really healing for me to watch that because of the support that I had, that we all had. But one of the things that I really wanted to bring across too was how our family suffered, the fear. Even now, some of my children can't watch this film yet because it's so traumatic to them. When they came the first time and took me away in handcuffs, my three children, youngest children, the oldest was 16, the youngest was 8 at that time, the three, and they were standing in the hallway in the kitchen, and I'm, telling them, call your sisters, tell them what's going on, and they're just in shock and crying and don't know what to do, and I was thinking, I have always homeschooled my children, and back 20 years ago, I would have been hauled out in handcuffs for homeschooling, and now I'm being hauled out for home birthing. So it's like something, if you believe in it, you got to stand up and fight for it.
I mean, I'm assuming that there are parts of New York State where this is not being prosecuted, and that this is, in some ways, a selective prosecution that took place in your part of the state. Or is it true that in other parts of the state there's similar kinds of enforcement taking place?
Well, periodically there has been. I mean, it's always a threat across the whole state for a CPM, a certified professional midwife, if they're practicing and somebody lodges a complaint, it's against the law.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, it's not even New York State. I mean, it's across the country. So, in hospitals, it's not like babies. Not every birth goes perfectly. We know that. But again, the spotlight is never on the OB. But if a midwife, and there've been cases across the country, when it's a midwife and it's a home birth, it's immediately, the midwife knows nothing, should never have had a home birth, should be in the hospital, and yet, babies are probably dying more in the hospital, well, we know this, right, than at home. But it's sensationalist, and the news grabs onto it, and again, it's like, we don't respect midwifery in this country, which is a huge problem, because it is the answer to our maternal mortality crisis.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, patient-centered care works, and that's what the midwifery model. So it's like, why doesn't this, isn't this hitting hard?
And part of what impressed me also is seeing the midwives come back and be connected to the family and check in on the child, and essentially a house call, which used to exist in this country. Does anybody here grew up in a family where you had house calls when you were a kid? Yeah, there were. It's pretty much stopped probably by the end of the 1950s. I don't know, but what a convenience, and again, less intimidating for the child certainly to know that they don't have to go to an institutionalized setting to be attended to. So, and I'm assuming now, what about Canada and Europe? I mean, just in terms of sort of middle class cultures and the practice of midwifery compared to here, where it's spotty.
I think culture is the big word there. We here in the United States have lost our natural birth culture pretty completely. You have to go back 2 or 3 or even 4 generations in some families now to hear birth stories that happened naturally, without medication, home or hospital. It doesn't matter what the room is, it matters how you approach the whole process. In Europe, midwives are seen as the guardians of natural birth, and they are seen as the caretakers for newborn babies. We don't see it that way here. When I actually went to midwifery school in England because I'm old, and that was the only thing I could find back in 1977. And there, at that time, every birth by law had to be attended by a midwife, even C-sections. That's how powerful and how entrenched, how incorporated into the culture midwifery is.
I noticed that one of your producers was Geraldine Dreyfus, who has been involved with a lot of important documentaries, including the film that we showed here last year about the indigenous schools. Did anybody see that last year? I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was nominated for the Academy Award. Sugar Cane. Sugar Cane, absolutely, yeah. So I'm wondering, did she play a decisive role? Did she, help this get made in a way that without her help it would have been difficult, or what? How was she involved?
It's amazing that we have these funders that are out there that are so passionate about documentary film. So Geraldine, and then I actually have to mention Ruth Ann Harnish, who came on very early on and is extremely passionate about this issue. So the film is in association with the Harnish Foundation. But yeah, I mean, particularly now, it's a difficult time for film, and particularly documentary film. And so we are very fortunate to have these funders that help us bring these stories to light.
Do you have a distribution deal?
POV.
A POV.
So ITVS was the first in. So we knew we had PBS.
Which is a part of PBS, ITVS, which is open to solicitation and proposals.
Was open to solicitation and proposals
right.
until
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Until 2 weeks ago. So I mean that's a huge. I'm sure it's a big topic at this festival. At every festival, is who's going to support these films? What's going to happen with public television? And what's going to happen with getting these stories out to the world?
Yeah. Public television will be harmed more than public radio, I think, ultimately. Because production is more expensive in television than it is in radio. Also because the audience for public radio is huge, and the audience for public television is much smaller, because public radio has prime time, and public television does not control prime time. There are a lot of differences. Also, it's worth noting the difference of public funding when it existed in France, for example. Well, in England, it's $200 per year per family supports the BBC. $200 per year. The money that was just cut was $1.30 per capita per year. So again, the British $200 per family, the United States $1.30 per capita, gone. And there's also no support at all within the PBS system. Hasn't really been since the 1980s for narrative film either. What support there was is for documentary film, but that's now in serious danger. Yeah.
Can I ask a question of the film? So, thank you first of all for the service that you do to women who want to have babies naturally at home or in hospital settings. I believe choice is the key word here. I feel very fortunate that both of my children were able to be born at home, one in Maine, one in Vermont, and it changed my life. I can't imagine having birth to my children any other way. What can we do? What can we do as people who want to advocate for women having a choice of how and where to have babies and with whom in attendance? What can we do to help the women of New York State?
What can we do to help the women of New York State have?
What can we do?
We can all move to New York State, I guess.
Don't give it to me.
You're being called.
We can tell the women of New York State to move to Vermont.
We're running out of.
I got a license
We're running out
in
of
Maine.
ideas, I guess.
Because of
It's not simple. We need more public talk. We need more PR in every direction. We need it on the public radio. We need it on the television. We need it in the churches. We need it in the neighborhoods. We need it in the doctor's offices. People you have birth stories. Tell your good birth stories, because people have to raise their awareness that birth is not okay in this country and that it's going down, that more people are dying, it's becoming more dangerous, and the system as we have it today, if we don't make changes, nothing's going to change, and it's going to continue to get worse. It's safer to have a baby in 55 other countries in the world than it is in New York State. It's safer to be a baby born in at least 55 countries in the world than it is in New York State. This has to be talked about. This is important. And women have to tell their stories, and fathers have to stand up for their children's birth. That's what's missing, is that it's just, what happens is that you have a baby and you're so absorbed, you're so engaged, you're so busy taking care of your family that you can't keep going back to talk about what worked for you, what was good for you, what you want to have for your neighbors, for your daughters, for your cousins, because you're so busy taking care of the family that you just had. I think that's what, I don't know. That's my thought.
The one thing I have to say is, I mean, we're living in interesting political times, but what really inspired me in making this film, besides the amazing work of these women, is that if you look at how the Mennonites came together and just very quietly and with such determination get shit done. Sorry, I'm going to say that. But I mean, they are really a big part of why that bill even came to the table. It's like, right, they just like amazing. So when I always say, like, when you feel like you can't do anything, just think of the Mennonites, because that's how things get done.
And it's community.
It's community, yeah.
Has the governor taken a position? You have a female governor. Has she taken a position on this bill? Do you know? I mean, part of the problem is probably that it stays under the radar, but if she would take a position...
She's the one
like
that rescinded the
rescinded
executive order that allowed CPMs to practice.
There you go, okay.
And we did go back and ask to have that reinstated, and there was dead silence.
How many people were surprised to hear that a midwife could be arrested in New York State? Yeah, okay, well, that's it. That's why the film is important also. Yeah.
I'm really curious to know, I know that there's a board of midwifery in New York, and that's what's governing nurse midwives and certified midwives. And so that's the board that's under the Department of Education, is that correct?
Yeah.
So are you getting any kind of support from your midwifery colleagues in the board of midwifery? Like, what does that look like? I'm really curious. I'm asking myself as a certified nurse midwife, and I'm appalled by what's going on for all of you. And and I would like my colleagues over there to be more active, and they're in our...
We reached out to the Board of Midwifery. We actually may well be able to attend and present information in September. But the last time, basically we were told, when this bill gets passed and there are certified professional midwives, then we'll think about it.
Because I mean, they're part of our professional region. It's where midwives in here in Vermont, and
So that might be a way that some action could happen, is for the Vermont.
We have a lot of support for this licensing amongst certified nurse midwives and certified midwives, both hospital midwives and out-of-hospital midwives. But, you know, they have to protect their jobs and they have to protect their status, and they're busy, and there's not enough coming together as a community of sister midwives to move this forward for the women of the state.
It's ironic that there's a shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of medical personnel. Every hospital is understaffed, and meanwhile you have these women who are trained, capable, ready, wanting, passionate, and can't function.
There's also quite a number of young women that have gone to midwifery school that have tried to pursue the education, and they've moved out of New York State. They can't do it, or they've dropped midwifery, because why would you pursue something that you will be a felon at the end of your graduation?
I mean, one could also think about the birth of the health of the babies and what that means in terms of their overall development as children, blah, blah, blah. You had a question right here.
Yeah, a couple questions. First of all, thank you for what you do. First question was there any disciplinary action against the OB who's involved in the trial?
Is there any disciplinary action towards the OB who was involved with the care of the child?
And the second question is there anyone actively lobbying against your bill? And the third question is, have you gone back and talked to the governor?
Is anybody lobbying against the bill, and have they gone back to talk to the governor again?
I don't think that there's anybody lobbying against the bill. I don't think there's any active opposition. And actually, ACOG, the OBGYN Association, they support licensing more midwives. They're not objecting, they're not trying to block it from happening.
So where's the political leadership?
They're doing something else. Again, that's where I feel we have to have it has to be a bigger issue. It has to be a louder issue. Because what we've been told, like our sponsor, who's very dedicated to this bill, but she sees like 400 or 500 bills a year. And quite honestly, their work year is very short. It's not 12 months. It's not even hardly 6 months. So it's hard to get their attention. We need everyone to be making this a bill.
Yeah. Other questions, yes?
So what I'm wondering about is, it does feel like there's a targeted political campaign against midwives, because how is this in anyone's best interest for them to pursue Liz, for them to give her 95 felony counts? I mean, and I was feeling that. And then when they arrested Lisa, who's of the community, and the point had been made in the film, usually they're not going to mess with what happens within the community. That, it just felt like there's hunting going on here. There's targeting going on here. It's not without a reason or without somebody's agenda being fulfilled here.
Absolutely right. You're right. And in our case in Yates County, there is a very ambitious prosecutor who just saw felonies, and he actually went to one Mennonite man who liked the idea of nurse midwives instead, and he asked him about prosecuting us, and the Mennonite man gave his go-ahead. And so this prosecutor saw felonies, and he actually, I can't believe this, but he was nominated as Prosecutor of the Year in New York State the year that we were arrested.
Yeah.
So yes, in our case, we were easy pickings.
Let's have one more question.
There's a mom, the woman in the green sweater.
Yes,
her hand up
sure.
many times. Yes.
Thank you. So could you just spell out a little more about the committee, the licensing committee of the education, the state education board, and are there, and the process for getting on that committee, if you know this, and what kind of, are those beholden in Massachusetts, where I'm from now, I used to be from New York, last year, CPMs were, legalized in Massachusetts. That was great. It was the result of a huge fundraising campaign and huge advertising, on radio and TV, public and other. But I'm just so curious about that, because in Massachusetts, there was aggressive lobbying by medical associations, aggressive lobbying by the insurance lobby, and I'm just wondering, and that all related to licensing. So what's been the experience specifically? Very important.
More knowledgeable on that.
Honestly, I don't even know how to answer that question. The education department, the powers that be, I'm not even sure that they're that powerful. My impression is that there's people that work in fluorescent lit cubicles and never go out into the light of day and don't understand midwifery, for example, and they're all about the wording in the law. They're all about what is the educational requirement for someone to get this license. And licensing in New York, their goal is to protect the people of New York from whatever it is that somebody's trying to get licensed for. So they perceive that they're doing a good job by maintaining this nurse midwifery standard that we have in place. We have 5 schools, they're all in New York City. They combined probably graduate maybe 40 students in a year combined. And it takes 2 years, and some of the programs are now becoming 3 years, and they're going to be a doctoral program, and they're going to cost more money. And it's going to cost a lot more money, and it's going to be much more prohibitive, especially for community-based midwives, midwife wannabes, women of color, women of poorer communities, they're not going to be able to go to university for 7 or 8 years to become a midwife. The people who are drawn to the education at that level are not the people who do hands-on bedside care. If you've got a doctoral degree, you expect to get paid as a researcher or a professor, a teacher, not as a bedside midwife. That wasn't exactly the answer.
No,
to the question.
I just want to add one more point to that, and that's another huge big issue, which I think is that we know just from how med schools are trying to attract doctors, that medical providers are much more efficient if they look like the person they're treating, they speak the same language, they understand the culture. And so by creating these educational standards and pushing the bar higher and higher, we're basically stopping women in their communities from becoming midwives. We're literally doing the exact thing that we know is going to work. So I know somebody who just graduated nurse midwifery, and she was one of 2 black students in her midwifery class. So it's a huge, huge problem. Like, women of color are not able to become midwives. They don't have the, because of educational requirements, cost requirements, location requirements also. It's like, where you go to school. They're only in certain cities. So, it's a huge disservice. And then we wonder why we have...
Only New York City.
Yeah. Then we wonder why we have the situation that we have with really, really horrible maternal mortality rates.
All right. Well, thank you so much for bringing